It is Saturday night. It's fight night for the UFC, and it is time for MMA Live Before Lock right here on Awesemo.com. That is the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. I am Jason Foy. We are here for the next 90 minutes to get you ready for tonight's UFC 256. Of course, following us will be NBA Live Before Lock with Greg and Adam, as they'll get you ready for tonight's NBA action. I believe we have 7 games, so I'll be putting my lineups together once we get done here. Of course, I will be in Slack as well after the show is over. If you do have any questions, with myself and Pete will get you some answers to help you build those lineups. So, of course, start submitting those questions right here, whether you're on YouTube or maybe you're a premium member. Hit that up in Slack as well. And, of course, as the way it goes, if you do leave a super chat, you do go to the front of the line when it comes to questions. Always appreciate the super chats that we do get here right here on YouTube. Be sure to smash that like button, help us out a lot as well, and help Awesemo get up to 50,000 subscribers here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, and of course hit that notification bell so you know when a new show is live. Pete, how you feeling today? I mean, as you tell me before the show, you've been ready for these fights for a while today.
Yeah, man, it's felt like the longest day ever. I've been up ready to go since 7 a.m. I don't know if like my brain thought it was early fights or whatnot, but of course, you know, we lost another fight since the last time we spoke. So we lost the Spivak fight, but you know, now we have like a 7:30 push or whatever time it is. So I'm excited for the fights. I can't wait. It's still a really good card. You know, and I'm interested to see what our viewers are thinking about some fights or what questions they have. And I'm interested to see some of your hot takes tonight as well.
Yeah, I've been kind of monitoring what our people have been saying in Slack all day long, so kind of got an idea of some of the questions that are out there. Of course, you mentioned about Spivak versus Vanderwall being off this fight card. In terms of like my roster construction, it really didn't have much effect at all.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I was really only going to target one side of the fight, and that would have been Spivak. And I thought, you know, it would have been a sneaky spot where a heavyweight could go in there, get a bunch of takedowns and a late finish, or possibly rack up a ton of points. You know, it's okay though. I'm okay with losing that fight if we had to lose any of them. Obviously, I hope, you know, that they're healthy and that everything's okay. But of the fights to lose, there's probably only one other fight that I wouldn't have minded.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I was telling my wife, she's like, "Yeah, what time your show today?" I'm like, "Well, it is 4:30, but it is a Vegas card, so you never know what might happen." I mean, we're kind of used to this at this point.
Yeah, I mean, goodness, come on, we're in Vegas every week. It's something. If we only lose one, it's a good day. So, you know, this card has been hit from Maine to Spain, though, Jason. If you look at it in the list of canceled and fizzled bouts, it's crazy. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's almost like 10 canceled bouts if I'm looking at the Tapology page.
Yeah, it's crazy. It does seem like the UFC has kind of been on the defense this week about their COVID protocols, and I think that definitely does play into it. But of course, you know, when we did the strategy show on Wednesday, we didn't have the salary for Tecia Torres on FanDuel. And when I think it was yesterday, I'm on FanDuel and I'm like, oh, let me see if they put a salary. When I saw $15 for Tecia Torres, my first thought is, okay, if you're a multiple lineup player, how do you avoid not having like 70% shares of Tecia Torres?
Yeah, and I just realized I didn't update the FanDuel pricing for Tecia Torres. I changed the fight order and everything around. I updated that, but you know, $15 is going to be hard to get away from over on FanDuel for me, and she's going to have to defend a ton of takedowns. Sam Hughes is going to look to press her against the cage. Sam Hughes will be the slightly larger opponent. I mean, coming in at 5'5", Tecia is 5'1", a 4.5 reach advantage as well for Sam Hughes. But you talk about a massive, you know, difference in terms of UFC experience. Tecia Torres having 12 UFC fights, not to mention the time on The Ultimate Fighter, and fighting literally a list of who's who in the women's MMA divisions. So, like, you know, I think 15 for Torres is going to be, you know, kind of a gimme for some, because there's no way she should lose this fight. I think Hughes will be pretty popular based on, you know, just the narrative of always picking the opposite in women's MMA or in heavyweight MMA and just kind of go with who's cheaper or who's lower owned. I don't really foresee that happening here. It's definitely possible. Torres always loses close decisions, Jason. So that's kind of like what she's known for. But I was actually impressed with her previous performance against Brianna Van Buren, and I think she can replicate that moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of the great sources to use when you want to, you know, look up fighters is Tapology. And one of the things I love about Tapology is when you click on a fighter, for in this instance, when you click on Sam Hughes, you can look at the record of her opponents when they fought. And the thing that jumps out to you, I mean, look, and you're going to expect this when you're talking about a fighter who only has 6 professional fights, is the competition that she has faced leading up to this. This is a massive step up in competition. I understand in her case why you take this fight, but like, to me, like, DraftKings, I think, is a different animal in terms of Tecia Torres tonight, because she's priced accordingly on DraftKings. She's not priced accordingly on FanDuel, in my opinion. So to me, like, I from a DraftKings perspective, that's a big price point to pay for a fighter that we've talked about on Wednesday. We'll talk about here throughout the show. She's just not a finisher.
Yeah, and on FanDuel, Torres will get the bump based on defending takedowns, so that's obviously a plus. And she's coming in discounted at $15 when she probably should be $19 at least, in my opinion. That's kind of how the DraftKings salary should translate over to FanDuel. Torres coming in at 8,900 is a little bit rich because there's no bonus points for defending takedowns. She's not a finisher, so obviously her upside is capped. But from what I saw in her previous bout against Brianna Van Buren, she's extremely aggressive and was throwing a lot of strikes, a lot of punches, a lot of kicks, great combinations. And potentially that does overwhelm Sam Hughes because of, the experience and just not fighting top competition. Like, I think Sam Hughes is good. I don't think that she's bad at all. And this is kind of just accepting the fight to get into the UFC. And I think it's just an opportunity. And, everybody's going to look to take advantage of the opportunity. But I have a very hard time thinking Tecia drops this one.
I mentioned this comment that's in Slack from FK Coolers, where he says, probably just X out every woman and hope they don't hit an armbar.
I used to do that. But you know what I mean? Like sometimes you will actually be surprised with some performances here. And, I know it's frustrating when you're on the wrong end of women's MMA and maybe you pick the better fighter, and, in anything that just happens in one slip up, one mistake. I'm okay with it though this week. I think that the 2 female fights aren't bad at all. I have no problem rostering Torres and just hoping for the best. And maybe I'll get her a little bit under-owned, and it's like a nice leverage play.
Yeah, the Dern Janet Roby fight, I think, is an interesting fight in terms of especially GPP, of how that does play out, which kind of leads us to, I know, something that you wanted to talk about, and that's, key fights in terms of GPP here tonight. As you look up and down, and and you talked about Holland and Jacare Wednesday on the show. I think that's one you got to look at. I like the Tucker Quarantillo fight, not just GPP, but also I think that's a cash fight as well. And I want to say there was one other fight you mentioned to me that you thought was really key for GPP.
Yeah, I think that there are some fights where I just can't see how, if either one of these fighters win, how they're not going to be in the optimal. And the one that really stands out to me is the first fight of the night, Chase Hooper, Peter Barrett. If you look at Peter Barrett's salary, 6,900, right? If he does anything and he has a heartbeat for 3 rounds for 15 minutes and he comes out as the victor, he's going to be in the optimal because of his salary. Now let's talk about it from an actual strategic and stylistic approach. Peter Barrett definitely has the tools to beat Chase Hooper. We've seen Chase Hooper exposed against Alex Caceres. If you can defend takedowns, if you can have some footwork, if you could beat him up on the feet, bully him a little bit, Chase Hooper, he will get desperate for takedowns, and he'll literally just he's relentless. But I think he needs to address a strength and conditioning program, and more importantly than not, start talking to your dad and have Ben Askren help you out with some takedowns. I really think that Ben Askren can definitely help him out. I wonder if they did that this camp.
He spent some time up there.
Yeah, and I think that's right. Like, he should, right? Because you're an amazing jiu-jitsu practitioner, right? But if you can't get the fight down there, then it's useless. So I think that Chase Hooper now, even at 9,300, the only worry for him in a victory is what happens if he gets it done too quickly. What happens if he takes down Peter Barrett and, or just one back take, sinks in a rear naked choke, and you're done, and it's done, and he gets 95, 97 points or something, and doesn't really get over that 100-point threshold. So I'm okay with rostering this for first fight, Jason. I have plenty of both sides.
Yeah, I mean, and both of us know Peter Barrett very well. I mean, look, when you talk about, where can the struggles come for Peter Barrett in this one, is getting taken down and potentially getting submitted. But if this fight stays on the feet, this is where you're going to want to be a Peter Barrett backer. I mean, look, you're taking a chance. He is a punt play.
Yeah.
But, and you bring up the great point, if he wins this, he's optimal. There's no question. And we're going to talk about some betting line movements and prop bets here in a little bit. But that was one of the prop bets I was paying attention to. As of, I want to say it was yesterday, the day before, I text you about it. I said, Peter Barrett by TKO KO is plus 1,000. It's now plus 550. I think that number's going to come down a lot. But look, if Peter Barrett's going to win, it's by knockout. Chase Hooper's going to win. It's like going to be by submission. So I think when you're looking at punt plays, I think Peter Barrett's got to be someone you look at, because there clearly is a path to victory for him in this one, but he's got to keep it on the feet. I don't see how Peter Barrett wins this fight if this becomes a grappling fight.
Yeah, I would agree. I do side with Chase Hooper. I think that he's slick enough to work towards some submission attempts. Chain a bunch of things together that maybe previous opponents weren't able to do against Peter Barrett. And even on the regional scene, like, we know Peter Barrett enjoys to stand up and strike, and he's pretty good at doing that. But, he has slipped up in the past on the mat. But regardless, I'm interested in this fight. I think that it's an important one. Another fight that I'm really interested in, and I think is important, Jason, is that Quarantillo Tucker fight. That really kind of just, stares me in the face. And I'm looking at that like, man, that's going to be action packed, or at least I hope so.
Yeah, that's one of the fights that I want to kind of bring up. And, because I know we're going to get the question about stacking. Is there fights to stack on this card? And as I looked up and down the card, like, there's two fights that kind of stick out to me that are non-main event wise. Co-main event, Tony Ferguson, Charles Oliveira, just because I think there could be a lot of strikes thrown in that one. And Tucker and Quarantillo was the other one. But I know you're not kind of big on this one in terms of this card.
It's tough, man, because like I really like the Billy Quarantillo Tucker fight. I think that's going to be action like crazy. I've been flipping, back and forth with it, because I see ways for both men to win. I think that if Quarantillo avoids a head kick, a left head kick or a left body kick, which he has shown that he can get cracked with it, and Tucker's really good at that, I think that he can push the pace and somewhat break Gavin Tucker. I have plenty of both sides, but I do favor Quarantillo in the matchup the longer the fight goes. I think Tucker's going to be dangerous early on, has excellent striking. It's a really close fight. Like, it really is. This whole fight card is a bunch of great matchups. And, I'm actually pumped to watch the fights. Like, I'm always pumped to watch the fights, but now it's kind of like, all right, we got a good card.
Yeah, Quarantillo Tucker is probably the fight that interests me the most on the prelims. I'm really looking forward to that one. I would tell you this, I hope this is not a fight card that goes till about 1:30 in the morning. Because, Pete, I got to be at the stadium at 8:30 tomorrow morning. So I'm really not wanting a 1:30 in time for this pay-per-view. Hopefully that is not the case there. I mentioned about betting line movements, and that's always something that I tell people, you got to pay attention to what's going on with the betting lines. And so the biggest movements is there's really four fights where we've seen the biggest movement. First off, Jacare Souza started plus 135, now minus 112. Tecia Torres, she started minus 465. She's now minus 620. Billy Q started plus 105. Now he's minus 170. Rafael started plus 105. He's now minus 125. I would tell you, I keep going back and forth on this Jacare Holland fight. And what scares me about having too much weight on Jacare is what happens if this fight stays on the feet.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about it, and I said that Kevin Holland will have a significant speed advantage over Jacare Souza. And Jacare Souza definitely has lost a step in terms of his skills. He knows what to do. It's kind of just like his body's not responding as fast as it used to. I do think Jacare Souza possesses excellent power. I think he can definitely knock out Kevin Holland. But from a technique standpoint, I do think that Kevin Holland is the better striker. I think he's the faster striker. He's possibly in the running for fighter of the year. And I know you talk about Davison Figueiredo. I still think that outside of a champion, Kevin Holland is definitely in the discussion. I mean, he will have a 5th fight in 2020. That's pretty remarkable. My one worry is how in the Kevin Holland versus Darren Stewart fight, how Stewart was controlling him and out-grappling him. And Kevin Holland has shown that he can be controlled on the mat. And guess what? Jacare Souza has been going for takedowns in his past couple fights. He just has not had the best success at getting the takedowns. But I do feel like he can take Kevin Holland down because wrestling's kind of not, Holland's strongest suit. He likes to go for unorthodox technique standing up. He will hit instead of defend takedowns. And sometimes when you do that, he gets taken down and put on his back. I think if Jacare takes him down, he subs him. I really do. I think people aren't crediting Jacare enough in this matchup, and Kevin Holland's definitely the hot commodity. I have plenty of both sides, but give me the discount at Jacare Souza for a slight lean. I'm okay with it.
This is MMA Live Before Lock right here at Awesemo.com. Of course, today's free premium content over at Awesemo.com is MMA rankings. Also, NFL rankings are free on the website. So as you're looking to develop those rosters, be sure to check out our MMA rankings. And of course, I mentioned coming up after us is NBA Live Before Lock and NBA DFS. Well, it's here, baby. It all started last night, and we have a great offer going on right now over at Awesemo.com, as you can get $1 NBA access through December 29th for new members only when you use the promo code Caruso, like the Lakers guard, Alex Caruso, Caruso. This gives you access to everything we have to offer for NBA DFS in the first week of the regular season. NBA action, including projections, ownership projections, our expert Slack channel, lineup builder, and so much more. Sign up today. Go to awesemo.com/join to sign up today, and be sure to use that promo code Caruso for $1 for NBA access. I know I will be a part of the NBA covers throughout the season, so looking forward to getting back in there. Gotta sign up for my NBA League Pass again to watch all these games. And John Wall was looking good last night. I'm just telling you, that was definitely something I was looking forward to seeing there. So be sure to check out NBA Live Before Lock after we are done here. In terms of value plays, actually, before we go on there, some prop bets that I put up here. And Pete, I'll just kind of label them off, and you kind of give me some of your thoughts as we get through here.
Okay.
Ferguson wins round 3 plus 975. Daniel Pineda by decision plus 340. I mentioned about the Peter Barrett TKO plus 550. Chase Hooper via submission plus 115. Tecia Torres inside the distance plus 315. And Billy Quarantillo wins round 3 plus 1200.
Yeah, so like for me personally, like picking rounds is always difficult. I'd rather, if I was going to do prop bets, anything like that, I would definitely pick the outcome of how I think it's going to go. I do think that, the Chase Hooper via submission, it's kind of at the range where it should be, because if he wins, that's basically the only way I think he wins. I don't see how he does it anyway else.
Like, to me, why would you pay the big minus money for Chase Hooper when the likelihood of him winning this fight is via submission? I would just take the submission prop and move on. And look, maybe you just hedge your bet. Play the Barrett TKO line as well.
Yeah, I think if Peter Barrett wins, that's how he's going to win. Because like fight IQ has to be brought into the table too. And I do know that, he can definitely make some mistakes here, and any mistake on the ground, Hooper can definitely capitalize. I mean, it's recency bias. I don't think many people are going to want to touch Hooper, and I don't blame him, because of what Alex Caceres did to him. But we also have to give Alex Caceres some credit. Like, he's a UFC veteran, Jason. Like, the guy has fought everybody.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of looking at Alex's ownership projections. I mean, look, people are not scared off, of Chase Hooper. I mean, but look, if, Peter Barrett can pull it off, as we mentioned, he is going to be optimal. There is no doubt about it. Now, let's talk about some, value plays and captain options as we look here. In terms of value plays, I think we've kind of gone through a lot of these ones. Janaroba is interesting at 7,500. The other one that I think potentially could be interesting, how about Renato Moicano at 7,800?
Yeah, Renato Moicano is an interesting fighter here, because it's hard to trust Renato Moicano because you don't really know what you're going to get, because we have seen him knocked out in the 145-pound division. Now you're talking about him, again, coming back to 155 pounds, just like his previous fight. But, he has shown the susceptibility to get cracked and knocked out. Now he's facing up against Rafael Fiziev, one of my favorite strikers in the entire UFC right now. I mean, excellent power. Everything he throws, I feel like he could knock out Renato Moicano with a jab. And if you think about when Renato's been stopped, you think about the Korean Zombie, Jose Aldo, he gets overwhelmed. And I do think that Rafael Fiziev can definitely overwhelm him. Now, Moicano needs to take this fight to the mat because he can compete on the feet, but that's like the danger zone, Jason. Moicano actually beat up Calvin Kattar, which actually blows my mind. And that's kind of like before Calvin Kattar exploded onto the scene. So he definitely has the potential to hang on the feet, but take your opponents down, work towards a finish on the mat. I just think it's going to be a hard strategy to use against Fiziev, who's going to be so wise to it from great coaching staff at Tiger Muay Thai. I'm excited for the fight, but Moicano might be one of those guys that could be going under-owned, and I don't hate what you're saying there.
In terms of captain's options, we'll start over on DraftKings. Obviously, people are going to look at Davison Figueiredo 13,800. Ciryl Gane 14,100. But I will tell you this, and I told you this via text, and I even was having this conversation with Alex the other day. Billy Quarantillo, I think, is my sneaky MVP this week.
Yeah, man, you like me to get Billy's name tattooed on your back. You love Billy so much.
It's the pace and the volume that he brings, and the fact of Gavin Tucker's going to bring that same type of game. So I think it's got the recipe to rack in a ton of points. I mean, you think about, what was it last week? I want to say Vettori was the optimal MVP last week. It was volume, the takedowns, and that's the thing is you can look at I know people are going to look at Ciryl Gane, and I'm saying it's a good play as an MVP because you feel very confident. My only concern is, does it come so quickly that there might be someone else on the card that just gets more volumes, and maybe it's a third round finish, and say Billy lands over 100 significant strikes, throws in 2 or 3 takedowns, man, the points could really rack up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to develop some more tools to help you guys out, and I'm gonna develop something out of pace. I'm gonna figure out something. I'm gonna create some tools because there are certain fighters that really can break slates based on pace. I'll come up with something, but if you think about a Kamaru Usman, a Colby Covington, a Billy Quarantillo, and I can even speak to that. I can actually throw Quarantillo in that conversation because tons of volume, tons of takedowns, just scramble city. And you talk about relentless cardio. When a guy has relentless cardio, I want him in my lineup. And that's kind of his path to victory here against Gavin Tucker is bring him into deep water, try to drown him because we have seen Tucker fold against Rick Glenn. Just relentless pace in that matchup, and he wasn't able to keep up. So I don't hate Gavin Tucker. You love Billy Quarantillo. I love this fight. I do favor Billy Quarantillo, but I do have plenty of Tucker because he has shown glimpses of star potential.
Could be a sneaky stack in cash. I'm just saying.
I would agree. I mean, if I'm looking at this fight, right, besides the main event, which fight would you stack? I don't see a high-paced fight really anywhere else, or a fight where either side can pull it off. This is the one where I think it could be nonstop action.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those ones that, May Ferguson Oliveira is another fight you can look at. Let's get right into the listener questions. Let's go over to our premium Slack account. Legalize asking us about, he wants our opinion on this lineup that he has put together where he has spent all $50,000 on DK. So we got Ciryl Gane, Davison Figueiredo, Charles Oliveira, Kevin Holland, Billy Quarantillo, and Verna Jandaroba. I don't mind that. I don't mind that lineup. I mean, you did an excellent job on Wednesday of kind of labeling out the flaws that you see in Jandaroba's game. Obviously, if she can get this fight to the ground, it'd be a very interesting jiu-jitsu matchup between her and Mackenzie Dern. But if it's on the feet, it is, you favor Mackenzie Dern. Outside of that, I like all the other plays in this one.
Yeah, the Janaroba call I think is going to be a common call, and my worry about Janaroba is just like upside. Like, say she squeaks out a win against Mackenzie Dern, like what does she really produce as far as like a score? Because a finish over Mackenzie Dern would absolutely blow my mind. I couldn't really see it. I know Verna Janaroba's jiu-jitsu is absolutely legit. Different styles of jiu-jitsu, so I'm interested to see if this does hit the mat. I think Mackenzie Dern will look to keep it on the feet and beat up Verna Janaroba, because I never thought I'd say this, but Mackenzie Dern's striking in this matchup should absolutely demolish Verna Janaroba on the feet.
Yeah. Crimson Raider asked this question. He goes, "What randomness should I be using? I start at 25%. Is that too much? Thanks." Obviously, he's talking about Fantasy Cruncher.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, you can mix and match with the randomness, or you can do unique players or unique fighters. And I think if you use the unique fighters, it'll kind of do that randomness for you in a sense in regards to MMA slates. I don't hate setting it at that, see what you get. And just because you just punch in something on a Fantasy Cruncher, if you don't like the way it looks, trash those lineups and start again. There's no problem with doing that.
Mike thinks that you might call him crazy for his comment, and appreciate Mike in our premium Slack channel. He says, "Because one of my lineups is double stacked for the first time ever. I'm sure Pete would call me crazy."
You're crazy, man.
Now, here's the question. Is that cash or GPP?
I don't know, but I think regardless of whatever the heck it is, it's crazy. And the only thing I could see him double stacking is the Quarantillo Tucker fight in the main event. Outside of that, what are you stacking? And what tournament are you in? Because I kind of want to join it. No, I mean, it's not a bad strategy. I just think that's getting a little too cute. I really do.
It's like, hey, are you in a single entry? I gotta find that. I gotta find that one for you. But of course, if you do have questions, if you are a premium member here at Awesemo, hit us right there in our premium Slack channel. Of course, you can also go over to YouTube and ask us there. Brad says Barrett is beating Hooper. You heard it here first. There was two questions, and kind of it's on terms of fading. Miles asked fade the night on FanDuel, and then Zane asked fade main event / Figueiredo on FanDuel. As I looked up and down when I saw this question in, I looked down the salaries. I don't know if there's somebody on FanDuel I'm fading.
I mean, there's only a few fighters that I really don't have much interest in, and this is just my personal preference. So Hughes is kind of just a fighter that I'm not really too interested in. People want to pay for an upset over Tecia Torres. I'm not really seeing that happen, even on FanDuel, just based on the scoring. I just don't see that happening.
And especially in terms of, we've seen with Tecia Torres, it's much more about the striking aspect. So yeah. I could see where if you thought that Tecia Torres was going to go with a heavy grappling base, try to get this fight to the ground, and maybe say, hey, I'll take Sam Hughes and cash, try to get those takedown defense points. But I think Ticia's going to keep it up on the ground, up on the feet, excuse me. Davison Figueiredo at $23. Obviously it's a big price point you got to pay. I think you got to pay it. I wish it was a little lower, but there's a reason he's that high.
I might like Figueiredo a little bit more on FanDuel, and I think we discussed it on Wednesday's strategy show about how he's going to have to defend takedowns from Brandon Moreno, so that should definitely boost his score. Now you're talking about 5 rounds, but in general, Figueiredo is a low volume striker because he relies on power. Usually it's one or the other. You're not usually a high volume and powerful athlete. He picks his shots. I definitely think he can hurt Moreno. He has the jiu-jitsu edge. It's a slight edge. Moreno's pretty good everywhere. I think this is going to be a banger of a fight. If you like other fighters, like your lineup, not including Figueiredo Moreno, I'm cool with getting away from this fight. Like, I don't feel like it's essential. I know that you do, and that's perfectly fine. I think I have a decent amount of Figueiredo, decent amount of Moreno, because I think that the fight is so close. But sometimes when fights are so close and it's like, 2 rounds each, and then the last round is, up for grabs and it's debatable, sometimes that upside is capped a little bit.
Of course, we're getting a ton of questions right now in our premium Slack channel. Of course, when you're a premium member over at Awesemo.com, that does give you access to our premium channel. So that is one of the big perks that you have, where you can talk to all the hosts that you see and writers you see over here at Awesemo.com. It is a great feature that we have, a part of our Awesemo Plus packages. So if you're not a member right now, sign up right now. Go to Awesemo.com/join. You can hop in that MMA Slack channel. You can talk to myself and Pete and all the subscribers here at Awesemo.com to help you develop your lineups here tonight. By the way, the double stack, Mike said that's a GPP on DraftKings 150 max.
Oh, okay, man. Well, I can see stacks working if it allows you to get to the top fighters that you want. We don't really have too many high-priced options. I mean, we got Hooper, 93, Torres, 89, Gone, 92, Figueiredo, 9. I mean, if it works for you and you cash, man, you'll definitely be contrarian in that tournament. But Jason, we got 376 people in here watching our show right now. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure if you have a question, you shoot it in there. And if you're in our Slack, shoot the questions in. We'll gladly answer them. If you can hit that like button, get us to about 150. That'd be awesome. I'd appreciate it. We've got about another hour here. So
next up, let's go KCMO24 in our premium Slack channel. He goes, if Figueiredo wins and it goes the distance, what are the chances he doesn't score enough to be optimal?
That's my fear. That is my fear. Okay, so let's talk about this, right?
Like I'm trying in my head, I'm thinking, what would be the percentage I would say he's not optimal if it goes the distance?
I think it's 40%.
I was in that 30 to 40 range. That's where I was kind of thinking.
Because I think
it just depends on. I mean, because the one question you do have about Figueiredo, I mean, look, we've seen the dynamic power this guy has at 125 pounds, his ability to end the fights, but I think there is part of this question of what happens if it makes it to the fourth, it makes it to the fifth round. Will that pace and that high volume that he does have, is it there in the championship rounds?
Yeah, I think the longer the fight goes, the more it favors Moreno. I think that he has a relentless pace, can match it on the feet, definitely land some good strikes, can edge some rounds out, man. Like, I think this is going to be a back and forth fight. I don't think that enough people are giving Brandon Moreno credit. He's been the dark horse in this division for a while. I mean, you talk about his exit from the UFC and now his return to the UFC. The kid's been counted out his entire career, really. And if you have an opponent that won't go away and won't quit, sometimes you will quit. And I wonder if Davison could ever be pushed to that point. It's hard to say he will when he's 20-1. But I just think it's going to be a close fight, man. And naturally, 125-pound fights go the distance. Just like women's MMA tends to go the distance. You don't often find, anomalies where they're finishing like crazy. That's why Figueiredo is so special, because in this division, he's doing the unthinkable, Jason. He's finishing people. He's knocking people out, submitting them. So maybe it kind of goes towards the norm here, and it's a decision.
Yeah, it's something to think about there. Next up, Joe S. says, Cash, who has more of a floor and a loss? Brandon Moreno or Peter Barrett?
Moreno.
Yeah. I mean, my fear is just Peter Barrett gets taken down and he's submitted within the first 2 minutes, where I could see Moreno, even in a loss, even if it's a second or third round loss, where he could still get you a little more points than maybe Peter Barrett would. Next up, MK says, who do you guys like more for FanDuel GPP, Rafael or Kevin?
Yeah, Rafael is my boy.
Ooh.
I like him a lot. I think he's going to knock out Renato Moicano. I really do.
I would say Rafael. It's just more of my fear with Kevin Holland, and you outlined this on Wednesday, of he has shown the ability to get taken down pretty easily.
Watch his fights, man. Like, John Phillips was on top of him at one point, and Kevin Holland was okay on his back. If he's put on the mat, I have no doubt about it, Jacare Souza, finishes him. I really don't. Between ground and pound, between submissions, I think that Jacare is a really bad problem for him on the mat. So Kevin Holland just needs to not get close enough, stay on the outside, light him up, good kicks, good straight punches. And then, then he could definitely knock out Jacare.
Matt brings up a great point in our Slack channel about Brand Moreno as a captain on FanDuel is a very contrarian play and not a bad play.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I mean, you have to get different. Like getting different is huge when it comes to tournaments. And, if you're feeling bullish about somebody, play it.
Yeah. KC says, who do you guys like better on DraftKings? Daniel Pineda or Raphael? This is an interesting one because we were texting about Cub Swanson earlier in the day, and I said, the concern I have with Cub Swanson is first fight since the ACL and meniscus tear surgery that he had. He lives in California. Not trying to get political, but we know what's going on with California with gym closures, whatnot. So it makes me wonder what is training like. If I'm going to go between the two, I'd probably say Raphael.
Yeah, I mean, those are two very difficult fights to pick. I think that I can definitely see a path to victory for either one of these guys. I have a lot of faith in Rafael Fiziev. I've actually seen his training footage. I haven't seen so much training footage for the other. So in that instance, I would definitely side with Rafael Fiziev. He looks really prepared.
CS, appreciate you coming into the super chat on YouTube. He says, welcome back, Jason. What up, Pete? Can you guys give me your top low-owned choice on DraftKings? Also, shout out to Pete's dad getting through his last day of radiation. Hell yes, Pops. Thanks for your help, Coach S. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Anyone who, obviously, that's something I know me and Pete have talked about privately what's going on. But, Pete, you did put a picture out the other day of you and your dad on his last day of radiation.
Yeah, man. It was a great day. You guys putting tears in my eyes, man. I appreciate it. That's super nice of you guys. I'm happy to be able to contribute and help you guys out. Same with Jason, and happy you guys appreciate what we do. And it's a cool support system, man. You guys are great.
In terms of top low owned choices here, so as I'm kind of looking at the projections here of what we're seeing as ownership, Peter Barrett, we've talked about that at length. I mean, there obviously is a clear path to victory. Look at him. I do not like JDS, even though, yes, maybe he can catch Gon, but, this version of JDS, I just don't know if it can take place there. Cub Swanson to me is a interesting one. I don't know, how much faith you have in him. Kevin Holland's another one who we're seeing ownership under 30%.
Yeah. So like for me, this card is a very difficult single entry card. Like, I started off doing MMA DFS, not really playing maxes and doing single entry, finding a lineup and then putting that lineup in multiple contests. When I look at this fight card, Jason, I'm like, if I predict all the fights correctly, then you might as well go play Powerball, because these guys have so much, like everybody in here has a shot at winning. Like this is some great matchmaking. It really is. Like I don't see really too many mismatches here. I'm excited to see how this plays out. I think honestly, if you're looking at the entire card, if you were to name anything a mismatch, I guess it would have to be Tecia Torres against Sam Hughes based on experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was a conversation that me and Alex were having the other day. I said, man, I just think this is a tough MMA DFS card because there's a ton of these fights. I can see him going both ways. It definitely makes it a little difficult here. Next up, Miles says, favorite contrarian MVP on FanDuel, Holland or Pineda?
I would say Pineda, just because I do worry about Holland getting taken to the mat. I do think in the Pineda Swanson fight, right, you have an electric striker in Cub Swanson who has great boxing. I know firsthand he has good boxing, good kicks, just overall great striking, some good judo to rely on, but slips up in the grappling department and the submission department. We have seen him get controlled on the mat in wrestling, situations, get submitted quite a bit. So he has like mental lapses there. And Daniel Pineda on the feet can compete with Cub Swanson. They can literally go tit for tat. Pineda probably has the power edge. Every shot he throws is with bad intentions. He can work towards a submission on the ground, something that I think can take Cub Swanson out of there.
Yeah, it's next up. Miles says, odds Tecia Torres is on the optimal in FanDuel. That's an interesting one because she's gonna be highly owned. She's gonna be highly owned. No, and it's all because of price. All because of price. But I think there's got to be a thought process of maybe she doesn't score enough, and her ownership is so high that someone who doesn't have her in her lineup can beat her.
Yeah, so like Tecia Torres for me is like a nice bet, but as far as DFS, she's somewhat of a headache. She's always underwhelming. Always finds a way to make fights closer than they should be. It's kind of like she stoops to the level of her competition if she's fighting lower competition. But it's hard to really say that because she's fought the who's who. She just underperforms. She is literally an inconsistent underperformer. Maybe she shows out here, Jason. As far as a bet, I like it. As far as DFS, I'm hesitant, but I plugged her in quite a bit.
This really isn't DFS related, but I'll answer this one from Andrew. He says, Jason, any insides on the upcoming cuts from the UFC roster? Look, the UFC's added a lot of fighters over the last 6 months, and there's part of the contract is they have to give the fighters 3 fights a year. Well, when you have too many fighters on your roster, you got to start reducing. And I think there's 2 fighters on this card that I believe are fighting for their UFC, job here. And that is Jacare Souza and Junior Dos Santos. I think if either one of them lose or both of them lose, their days in the UFC are probably over. I mean, this is just it's
hard for me to wrap my head around, Jason. And we talked about it. They're legends in their own, respect, but it is a business. It is a business, and I can actually see where the UFC is coming from. Like, man, you can't lose 5 fights in a row by knockout and expect them to keep wanting to pay you crazy money. Because you're a huge name. And if you're not producing, that's a lot of money to just give you to lose, in a sense.
And here's the thing, and I heard Josh Thompson bring this up on his podcast this week. The UFC is not in the business of promoting old fighters.
Not anymore. Not anymore. They've moved on.
Yeah. Miles, interesting FanDuel question he has here. He goes, will Jacare at 14 eat the ownership off Torres at 15? Honestly, I've got a good amount of shares of them both in the same lineup on FanDuel.
Yeah. 15 for Torres. 15 for Torres or 15 for Oliveira. That's a hard fight. I do favor him. Mm-hmm. Okay, 15 for Torres, 15 for Quarantillo or Tucker. Good luck picking that fight too. You know what I mean? Torres is in a winnable spot, mispriced. I don't mind taking a shot there.
Yeah. Let's see here. We talked a little bit about Swanson Pineda. I kind of figured that came up. Basically, and this was I'll kind of rephrase the question, but it was what fight's going to break the slate on DraftKings?
Well, I think the first fight of the night is going to determine a lot. Obviously, because you have a min-price fighter in Peter Barrett, that if he wins and you do not have him rostered, you might be on the outside looking in. And you also have a 9,000 fighter in the first fight. So I think that's very pivotal, can break a lot of lineups. I do think that the Holland and Souza fight, usually that 8,200, 8,000 fight is pivotal. We talk about it every week. And then probably the main event, right? 5 rounds can determine a lot. 5 rounds, maybe even a loss can determine a lot. Say Moreno has a better DFS score than Figueiredo, or pretty close, and he's $1,800 cheaper. Can definitely make things interesting.
Next up goes cut the crap. Who's getting knocked the F out on the slate? JDS, I think, is the easy pick.
I think he is, man. I don't want to say it, but I think he is getting knocked out. I mean, you're not allowing your body enough time to recover from getting hurt and rocked. Just fighting Jairzinho Rosenstruck a couple months ago, and now going in there against, a green fighter in Cyril Gane, but a very talented prospect. And, when you are getting finished by Jairzinho Rosenstruck, Curtis Blades, Francis Ngannou, not to mention all the damage that he's taken, in the Stipe fights, the Alistair fights, the Kane fights, like, it's not like you just wipe the slate clean every time, guys. Like, he's going out there and he will get rocked easier and easier as the fights go on. So I do think that this is a nice matchup for Cyril Gane. I just wonder if the mystique of Junior Dos Santos gets to Cyril Gane and he's a little tentative.
Yeah, that is definitely something to pay attention to there. Of course, be sure to follow Awesemo on social media. Of course, our main account is at Awesemo_com. You can also follow the MMA account, Awesemo MMA DFS, to check out all of our MMA covers that we have for you over there at Awesemo.com. Also, we do have a Facebook group, so be sure to get in that group so you can chat along with everyone here at Awesemo and all the subscribers here at Awesemo.com. So be sure to give us a follow on social media and especially on Instagram. Give that IG account a follow there. Let's see here. We haven't really talked single entry. And I know there was just kind of someone mentioned that in YouTube. What's kind of your strategy with single entry tonight?
Well, I think single entry is trying to make sure that you find one fighter that you're absolutely confident in. And, if we ask chat who they're most confident in, I think we'll get a bunch of different answers, and that's okay. And that's why it'll, you can start different places. I don't necessarily always look at a 9K option as somebody I feel most confident in. Sometimes just not getting too cute. When you're in single entry, it's awesome to look at ownership. That's always important. So make sure you guys head on over to awesemo.com, check out our ownership, because if you can see what the field's doing, Jason, so say like, I don't know, say you pick 5 fighters and you're down to a 6th and it's leaving you enough salary for the Cub Swanson Daniel Pineda fight. And you're like, okay, this fight seems like a complete toss up. Let me look at the ownership. Who's carrying the less ownership? Mm-hmm. I'll probably just play the guy who's lower owned. In that instant, it's going to shoot you up the rankings, bring you to the top of the tournament. And I think that's a good strategy. But finding one fighter that you're backing, like, I think Mackenzie Dern probably goes out there, and I don't know if I'd put her as my favorite. Tecia Torres is an easy one, right? You don't know what her score is going to be, but she's going to get you a victory. Find fighters that you really feel confident in them getting a victory.
Someone asked about Chase Hooper, and let me get I want to word the question this way. Break down Chase's stand-up game. You're trying to be nice, aren't you?
I mean, I don't really need to be nice. I think I could just say what everybody knows. It's trash. His stand-up is trash. I mean, he throws good combinations when it seems like he's irritated, but like it's just straight punches. So the straight punches look good. Okay, I guess. But it's elementary, man. Like, it really is. Peter Barrett, like, has rhythm. He puts together kicks. He puts together elbow combinations, knee combinations. So, like, hands and legs. Hooper, it's pitter patter into a takedown attempt. But I will say what makes Hooper so special, right, is the ground and pound. I think the ground and pound is really interesting because he's not just a lay and pray type of guy. Mm-hmm. He advances positions. He will try to, finish you or beat you up until he can get a finish. So that's why I think his price is appropriate. The one problem is that his striking defense is horrible. He blocks every punch with his face, doesn't move his head. So that's why Peter Barrett is also interesting. So in short, I need this first fight. I'm targeting this first fight heavy.
If you and your dad were coaching Chase, how is your mindset of like, okay, we just got to get this fight to the ground, or would the mindset be, hey, Chase, let's take 6 months off and let's work on your striking?
Well, I mean, you can definitely develop something. See, the problem is, right, he doesn't have the wrestling. So he's missing 2 of the 3 important elements in fighting, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. He has the jiu-jitsu box checked off, Jason. The striking box is completely empty. The wrestling box, it's kind of barely there, but it needs a lot of work. And the reason why he doesn't get takedowns is because the kid's not strong. The kid doesn't have good technique. He pulls guard. So maybe he doesn't need a takedown. Maybe he just pulls guard off of his back. He subs Peter Barrett with a triangle. I mean, won't get a point for a takedown, but it's interesting. I think that what I would do for Chase Hooper is he needs to definitely transform his game where he can be confident on the feet. But I would say the wrestling's more important than the striking right now.
Yeah, I'm with you there. GG123 in our premium Slack channel says, which one of each pair would you choose for the 153 max? Hooper, Gagne, and Rafael Pineda.
I like all those options.
Well, if you're saying you're picking one or the other, Hooper and Gagne or Rafael and Pineda,
I go to the first one.
yeah, I'm thinking the first one too. I mean, it's, we can talk about the concerns we have of Chase Hooper if the fight doesn't hit the floor, but I think that Pineda Swanson's it's a close fight. If they fight 10 times, is it 6-4, 7-3?
Yeah, I would agree. It's close. And it's one thing, right? It's hard to ignore a fighter, despite how terrible they may be in one department, when they have such an advantage in another department, because you don't know how a fight's going to go. Fighters can slip. I mean, look at Peter Barrett in his last time, got hit with a spinning back kick in a couple seconds into the fight. So strange things can happen in MMA, but Hooper has a significant edge in the jiu-jitsu department. Overall, if it doesn't hit the mat, Peter Barrett wins.
Yeah, that's a big thing. That's a concern you have. Like we talk about with Janaroba, the concern of on the feet, that it's an advantage Mackenzie Dern, but if that fight gets the ground, then it becomes really interesting to kind of see how that one, does play out. Next up, let's go back over to YouTube. Charles says best FanDuel MVP play. As I was developing lineups on FanDuel, like there's a lot of weeks where it's like I feel like I have 2 or 3 options that they're my go-tos. This one I'm kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I would agree, man. Like I think this is a very difficult fight card, but as far as like a captain, like I don't mind going to Gon at all. I really don't. I don't mind that at all.
I'm only fear is what happens if it's like first round he lands 20 strikes.
Yeah,
that's the fear.
In that case, right? You pick the correct fight. Like you know what I mean? Like you're not going to be always able to predict every outcome and every in and out and every transition. Just like I can ask you what's going to happen in the football game. You can't tell me everything that's going to happen, but you set yourself up for success. And I do think that what Junior has gone through these past 3 fights, going up against, and you watch what Cyril Gane does and what he brings to the table. Yeah. I mean, Cyril Gane can go out there and literally take down Junior Dos Santos and work towards a submission. I know that sounds crazy because Junior is a black belt, but Cyril Gane actually goes for submission attempts, goes for takedowns. So in that instant, right, that's kind of overthinking it for me. I picked the right fight, in my opinion. I would pick Cyril Gane.
Yeah. Next up, this is about the best punt play for GPP on DraftKings, Janaroba, JDS, or Peter Barrett.
I think it's Peter Barrett because we've seen Hooper exposed, right? Mm-hmm. JDS, yeah, because you're talking about what he's accomplished in the past, But let's be real, he's really struggled lately. But it's against tough competition. I would much rather take a shot at min-priced 6,900 Barrett, who could win this fight if he implements the correct game plan. You know what I mean? And it's not like I'm paying a lot of money for him. I'm down at the bottom of the barrel. If he does something, maybe even in a loss, maybe he's able to just reverse some positions and get some strikes, and that's not bad. I'm okay with it.
Favorite fighter under 8K on DraftKings?
Under 8K. I have 2. I have Tucker, despite I have plenty of Quarantillo, but Charles Oliveira, I think just the name of Tony Ferguson is going to put a lot of people on him, and I'm okay with that. I have plenty of Tony Ferguson. I do think that Charles Oliveira is a dog, and if Tony's not right from that Justin Gaethje fight, it takes one shot to really shell shock somebody. Oliveira can match him on the feet, can match him on the ground. The only problem with Oliveira is how volatile he has been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
He has seemed like he's kind of quit before. He gets hit with a shot, he wants out. He gets put in a submission, he wants out. This new Charles Oliveira 2.0, I think is going to surprise some people, man. He seems like a dog. And maybe now that Ferguson has been broken and beaten, that mystique of the boogeyman is gone. Now it's just like, okay, it's another guy, man. Like, I'm not worried about boogeyman El Kukui. I'm looking at Tony right now.
No, it's a great point you bring up. Cameron in Slack goes, Quarantillo or Dern DraftKings cash?
I would say Quarantillo has a higher upside, right? I don't know if it's neither one of those fights are safe, but Quarantillo definitely has a higher upside.
Yeah, I was just looking at pricing. So you got to pay $200 more for Mackenzie Dern. I would say Dern's probability of winning is higher than Billy, but Billy's upside in terms of DK points is higher.
I would agree.
Next up, more points in DraftKings, Janarobia or Mancano?
It's a tough one.
Would you think I might lean Mancano just because I feel the fight will be on the feet. But if it goes to the ground, Mancano's got a big advantage there.
Huge advantage. Rafael Fiziev has looked great in training footage. Obviously, that's training. And I will say the training, right, Jason, is a lot of wrestling takedown defense and wrestling scrambles. What happens if he's put in some jiu-jitsu scenarios where he's caught in an armbar, caught in a triangle, maybe Moicano has his back. How is his submission defense? Despite my love for Rafael Fiziev, it's a definite concern. So Moicano is a good play.
Appreciate we got 500 people watching us live right now on YouTube. If you haven't done so, be sure to hit that like button. Also, we're trying to get our subscribers over 50,000, so be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Of course, coming up after us will be Greg and Adam for NBA Live Before Lock as it gets you ready for tonight's NBA preseason action. Brad goes Torres or El Kukui?
I mean, El Kukui definitely has a higher upside. Yeah. I mean, the volume. And when I said that, Charles Oliveira can match Tony Ferguson on the feet, well, go and actually look at some Charles Oliveira footage of him training and his development standing up over the years. He has KO ability. He has KO power. The problem with matching Tony Ferguson on the feet is the ridiculous amount of strikes. Maybe Tony comes out and he's like, y'all must have forgot how good I am. Crazy pace, crazy volume. Oliveira gets overwhelmed and the fight's over. So Ferguson in that instant would be my pick. I have plenty of Ferguson. It's a fight that I like.
Gary's got a question for you, Pete. Okay. Who's taking off the Takedown City and who is stopping every entry into Takedown City?
Well, I think Tecia Torres is a nice one to stop a lot, especially on FanDuel. I actually have a little something for you guys. Let me see if I can pull this up. Where is it? Well, I can give you a little nugget. Okay. Now, we're talking about Tecia Torres, right? Guess how many times she's been taken down in the UFC? It's been quite a lot.
I don't know how many.
21 times, Jason.
Really? Wow.
About 1.7 per fight. So that's quite a lot. A fighter that really stands out to me, though, is Kevin Holland. Comes in. He's been taken down 17 times in the UFC, about 1.8 per fight. That's why I have a concern. That's why I think that if Jacare does go to the takedown well, which I think he should, He's shot 17 takedowns in his past 14 fights, Jason. 17 takedowns. Hasn't really succeeded at getting any of them, though. Like, let's be real. But if he gets one, might be all he needs.
Yeah. By the way, got a question about Super Draft. We rarely get those questions, but we'll mention this one here. So in terms of the champion slot, I would look at someone like who I just saw here. I don't want to sound like a broken train with Billy, but 1.9 times sticks out to you. Raphael, 1.9 times. Pineda, 1.9 times. Those definitely stick out to me. And some of the value plays that maybe you look at, that get you a little bit better. Maybe a Gavin Tucker at 1.35 times, especially if you think that fight's going to go 15 minutes, could get you a nice little score. Tecia Torres, 1.35 times. I think that's another one to look at there when you're, if you are playing on Super Draft. What round do you expect the main event to end? That's a good one.
I think it goes the distance, truthfully.
Think so?
I do. I don't.
I feel like a third round finish is coming.
I don't think so, because I think that Figueiredo is gonna have to be careful with his output in this matchup, because Moreno ain't going away easy.
Yeah. Charles brings up a question about Tecia Torres. Why would you pass on her?
Well, you pass on her because despite being a free square, you're hoping to A, pick another correct fighter to win, and B, have that fighter outscore her because she doesn't have the best, production in DFS. Now, Hughes can go out there at 7,300. She's somebody we're not talking about. If she takes down Tecia Torres, who's been taken down quite a bit and is in close fights, I guess she can win a decision. I just do not see it happening after looking at Tecia Torres' resume, fighting Joanna, Jessica Andrade, Weili Zhang, Brianna Van Buren. I mean, I can keep going on. So, I think Torres is a nice play. It's just the price on DraftKings that can make things difficult. FanDuel, it's an easy yes.
Someone asked for us to talk a little bit about the co-main event. Ferguson and Oliveira. I feel like we've talked a lot about Charles Oliveira, but for Tony Ferguson, I really think, and when we talk about this Wednesday on the strategy show, I think that really a key for Oliveira is he's gotta stay out of that elbow range, because that's where Tony. When you look at and I forget what outlet this week, they had this face of like the last 10 or 15 people that have fought. Tony Ferguson. Yeah. And his elbows, he just cuts them up. So, to me, that's the key. If Charles Oliveira is going to win this fight, he's got to stay away from those elbows. If you see Tony land these elbows early, it's probably going to be an easy night for Tony Ferguson.
I would agree. I think Tony Ferguson's going to come in super motivated. As long as Charles Oliveira is not affected by who's in front of him and he fights like how he has been fighting, it's going to be competitive. Charles Oliveira is on a great streak right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's on a 7-fight win streak right now. So at one time, Tony Ferguson had an incredible win streak in the UFC. Still 15-2 overall. Definitely has the edge in strength of schedule. Ferguson definitely has fought the better people. He really has. So I just worry how much was taken out of Ferguson, Yeah. And Ferguson is the type of guy, right, where he fired his nutritionist because he had questions surrounding, his weight cut the last time. He has a guy who's around him all the time that is basically his coach, but he's like, no, he's not my coach. He's a trainer. I'm my coach. So Tony Ferguson's insane, and maybe him not having actual guidance and actual coaches can hurt him in the long run. It's hard to say, though. He's 15-2 in the UFC.
Yeah, but you go back after the Gaethje fight, and I can't think of his name, jiu-jitsu guy, Eddie Bravo.
Yes.
And he said, he goes, it just became really uncomfortable when they asked me to take the lead in the corner, and it's a stand-up fight. He goes, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy.
Yeah. Yeah, so, in situations like that, know your role. In a situation like that, it's like, hey, Tony, we got to get it to the mat. We got to start working towards getting it to where we're strong, where I know you can do some stuff. So Yeah, I'm interested for the fight. Obviously, everybody's tuning in thinking that Ferguson's going to go in there and wipe out Oliveira. This isn't the Oliveira of old, so I think it's going to be competitive.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. By the way, if you're looking to place a bet and trying to find the best lines out there, you got to go over to Odd Shopper right there at Awesemo.com, right at the top of the screen. So be sure to check out that. Marco says Hooper is strictly GPP. Do you agree?
I think you can classify fighters as being GPP or cash based on how volatile they are. And what we've seen from Hooper is a swing of success and an absolute embarrassment. So it's kind of like, you know what you're getting in GPP tournaments with him. You could get a couple points. You could get a ton based on transitions and ground and pound. So I don't disagree with that. He has high upside, because I will say that Peter Barrett is very, very tough. Very, very tough. So he might be hard to put away, but it could come with a ton of accumulation. So we'll have to see.
Brad, Brad, I appreciate you in the super chat. He says, Barrett or Moreno, I'm torn.
I would go Moreno. I think we're arguing about 1 and 2, or, the number 1 guy against the number 4 guy or third guy. I had Barrett in a lot of GPPs, but like the main event's going to be competitive.
Yeah. Brad Swift, I appreciate you in the super chat as well. Appreciate you, with your donation there. Dern or Tony Ferguson? We had another one was also Dern or Holland. So I guess you can answer both those there.
I will say that Dern, Tony Ferguson, right? Like, okay, let's look at my heat sheet. I don't know if you guys checked out the heat sheet, but it's on awesemo.com. If, after this show, you need some more stat guidance or whatever. We got a lot of stuff dropping too. Some cool stuff that will be coming. But Tony Ferguson, 5.8 strikes per minute, Jason, right? That's nutty. That's crazy. So based on activity alone, Dern 3.07. She's not a striker. She's a grappler, obviously. So she attempts 3 submissions per 15 minutes. I don't see Dern or Jana Roba submitting each other. Mm-hmm. Kevin Holland, Tony Ferguson, right? I think that's a close one. Despite my love for Jacare Souza, if I'm looking at the stat sheet, 5.8 for Ferguson, 4.68 for Holland. And that is Holland's path to victory, Jason. Stay on the outside, pick them apart with shots, maybe a high accumulation of shots, some knockdowns, whatnot. Do not get lulled into going to the ground with Jacare. Do whatever you can to avoid that. So we will see.
Matt says, Torres in captain on FanDuel, or am I crazy? I don't love that.
I mean, it depends on how many lineups you're playing, right? Yeah. Like, that's okay, because not many people are going to do it. It's contrarian. She should go out there and win. So a lot of people will roster losing fighters in the captain spot on accident, because obviously you're always trying to find the right people. I do think that Torres gets it done. So, now you have to figure out the rest of your lineup.
Machiavelli says DeBronx a featherweight, Tony a natural lightweight. DeBronx I would not call a featherweight. He's a guy who's fought at featherweight, but from a weight cut aspect, he's a lightweight. He's a lightweight.
It's going to be literally what we're going to have to classify me as. Like, I mean, at one time a featherweight, you know what I mean? So
I don't think you're ever going to see 146 on that scale again.
Hell no. 55 is going to be a challenge, so we're going to have to see. But yeah.
So you're saying I need to make some calls on some people close to you about.
No, man, I had a good training session today. It's cool. It's just tough up here in Connecticut, man. The freaking restrictions are insane. So, thank goodness I built the home gym.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Every time I sit there and think about going back to the gym, I say, no, not yet. Not yet.
And that's the thing, that's the one element that we don't know, right? Like, we can look at their social media as much as we can, right? But if fighters are smart, they're not going to put a lot on their social media. They're not going to really show you everything they're doing. So how are their training camps affected by COVID? It's a legitimate question. It really is. There's no bubble. It's not like we're in the NBA. Everybody's training. You know what I mean? Like, when you see fighters at the UFC PI, that's cool, because I know, like, okay, they're at a great facility. They have great minds around them, and they probably got a couple bodies to train with.
Yeah, no. And That's where Figueiredo's been the past couple weeks, is at the PI. So this is MMA Live Before Lock. We're going to be here for about another 10, 15-ish minutes, leading you up to NBA Live Before Lock as Adam and Greg are going to get you ready for tonight's NBA action. Of course, be sure to hit that like button right here on YouTube. Of course, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Let's get those. Let's try to get those likes up to like a $1.75 before we get out of here for this edition of MMA Live Before Lock. Next up, Pat brings up pass for Souza. I mean, I think we've it's him getting it to the ground.
Yeah. I mean, well, okay. Let's not hate on Jacare Souza, right? Like, I mean, he has knocked plenty of people out. And Kevin Holland was getting lit up by Joaquin Buckley at moments. He knocked him out. And as long as Jacare is not phased by Kevin Holland's speed or power, I mean, he finished Chris Weidman, finished Derek Brunson, Vitor Belfort via ground and pound, Yushin Okami. You know what I mean? Like, one shot from Souza can definitely change things, and he cracks a lot harder than Holland. It's just where he's at in his career. So we'll see. By the way, just a note, the first fight is at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that'll be Chase Hooper versus Peter Barrett. That'll be ESPN Plus, UFC Fight Pass before the TV prelims start at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, main card is at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Someone asked about who we thought they should go with at captain on FanDuel. I think really depends on, are you a single entry player? Are you a multiple lineup player? I mean, there's fighters that I'm definitely, as I look at who I'm looking at as MVPs, and it's just, I'm just no particular order, we're just going, top to bottom down the card. Figueiredo, Rafael, Cyril Gahn, Billy Quarantillo. Chase Hooper's a very sneaky FanDuel MVP play. Very sneaky. He is, because the narrative, everybody's off of him, right? It's kind of like if a running back burns you 1 week, right? You don't want to go back to that well because you're like, nah, I hate them. But Hooper can easily get a ton of points. I will say that for me, kind of not overthinking things, I like Gahn as an MVP for me, or a captain, whatever you call it. I just think that, he's in a good spot. He should perform. Someone asked about the captain games on DK. Of course, these will be the only fight that's not a part of this would be that opening fight of Chase Hooper and Peter Barrett. As I think about the captain spots there, maybe Tony Ferguson at 12-6 is a little sneaky play there. If you're looking not to spend up for, say, Tecia Torres, Cyril Gahn, Davison Figueiredo, Mackenzie Dern. I mentioned about Billy at 12, Rafael at 11-4, Kevin Holland 10-5. Yeah, all good options, man. All good options. That contest is very difficult. Very difficult. I hate that contest. It's so difficult, right? Like, when I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't like any lineup I can come up with, because you're rostering somebody that's super, super low. And it usually just doesn't work out. Brad Kaufman, I appreciate you in the super chat. He says single entry, looking for thoughts on his lineup here. Ferguson, Holland, Pineda, Figueiredo, Moreno, and Quarantillo. So he's stacking the main. I mean, stacking the main. Well, if we look at the stat sheet, right? I mean, 2.79 strikes per 15 for Figueiredo, 3.01 for Moreno. Not the highest, especially at 125 pounds. You would expect their activity to be a little bit more. Moreno should look to take down well. That's probably where his stats are coming from a lot. 1.93 takedowns per 15 minutes. You talk about that stretched out over 25 minutes. I don't hate stacking the main in cash. I think stacking the main in cash makes a ton of sense. I think it goes the distance. As far as GPP, definitely capture upside. I probably wouldn't do that in a GPP. It's hard for that to actually work out. And say Moreno loses, right? A Moreno losing effort needs to outscore every other 7K option. Zane says Billy Q or Gahn MVP on FanDuel. It's Gahn for me, and I know it's Billy Q for you with your tattoo. You're never going to see me with a tattoo, bro. You're never going to see me with a tattoo. My mom might kill me. First off, I mean, I think I'm the only fighter out there without a tattoo. That's every time my wife watches the fight, she'll go, "Is there something wrong with that fighter? Does he have any tattoos?" Yeah, right. I know.
Yeah. But yeah. Last thing you ever see me with tattoo. You can basically imagine that's not going to happen. Let's see here. Matt's asked about the main event going distance. We've kind of talked about that. You mentioned about that's one of your concerns. With Figueiredo is if you are going to pay up for him, if he goes 5 rounds, can he score enough that it's going to be optimal?
Yeah, I mean, what happens if Figueiredo goes out there and puts Moreno away quickly? One of the best 125ers ever, right? Henry Cejudo steps out of retirement.
He is not retired. Come on.
Yeah.
It was like 2 weeks after he quote unquote retired. He's talking about fights.
I know it's annoying. He won't go away. I think this fight could definitely happen.
Look, we all know what it is. He's got a price point for him to fight.
Yeah, it's a financial negotiation, and it's kind of like a strong arming. But
guarantee he is tweeting tonight about whatever happens in the main event. Guarantee.
100%.
Guarantee. Paul says, "What's the odds that Barrett actually wins the fight, though?"
20%.
Yeah, I was 15, 20%. I mean, it's just because there obviously is a clear path to victory for Chase. And we've seen Peter get submitted in the past. That is something to sit there and think about. But of course, NBA Live Before Lock is coming up next. So if you want to get those last minute questions in, if you are a subscriber to Awesemo, going to be hopping in our premium MMA Slack channel leading up to lock here at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So be sure to check out that. Of course, be sure to hit that thumbs up right here on YouTube. We've got about 146. Let's try to get that up to about $1.75. Before we get out of here, I think I've got all my lines pretty much done. I guess I'll probably kind of still might twinkle a little here and a little there, but are your lines pretty much done, Pete?
Yeah, I've been ready to go since 7 a.m. I mean, like my girlfriend, my dog slapped me in the face. I'm ready to go. So I'm ready. I'm ready to watch some fights. I'm ready to watch our guys break down the NBA slate. NBA's back. It's preseason, baby. I'm pumped regardless. I'm hoping to see some nice screenshots from everybody here. It's an interesting fight, man. And, on pay-per-view cards, right? I always like to think about strategy, right? Do people stack the pay-per-view more than they will stack the preliminary bouts? Like if you were thinking about ownership in general, where can you get an edge? Can you get an edge on preliminary bouts where a lot of people are somewhat unknown for casuals? I would probably say, yeah, right?
Yeah, that'd be where I would go with you.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you could easily. I mean, look, if you think a bunch of finishes are going to happen on the prelims, you can wipe it out there. I mean, I know. By the way, if you are a premium member at Awesemo, Alex just updated his ownership projections for tonight, so you got to check those out there. Not really a ton of surprises. If Sam Hughes can somehow pull it off, yeah, she's going to be optimal. Someone asked, we'll kind of end on this question of Cub Swanson and Daniel Pineda. I mentioned about there is these questions I have about Cub Swanson, first fight back since ACL meniscus surgery. The issues in his home state of California with training, and I know I was reading a story where he was talking about going to the gym, having to wear a mask, and all of that. But in terms of a fight, break it down for us before we get out of here.
Yeah, so I mean, Cub Swanson has electric striking. I mean, great hands. Was a force, and he still is very, very skilled. He's just getting older, 37. I thought the thing that kind of caught me by surprise was his finish rate. It sits at 58%, and I've kind of always thought of him as just an absolute killer. I mean, killer Cub. He's got 26 victories, only 58% finish rate, but that's it's pretty good. It's a lot of fights. He's fought the who's who, so he's not going to be surprised by anything Pineda does. It's just like the John Wall effect, right? Like last night, people were extremely tentative to roster John Wall or DeMarcus Cousins. I know I was. I rostered them in one lineup, but guess what? They ended up getting more run than I thought. So maybe Cub Swanson has healed his knee more than what we're giving him credit for. And from a stylistic matchup, he will have the speed advantage over Pineda. He needs to avoid the big shots and not get taken down and submitted. I mean, Pineda worked towards a great finish against Herbert Burns when he was completely counted out by a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And the guy Pineda has 100% finish rate. That's pretty crazy in 27 victories.
Crimson Raider, he goes, thoughts on Pineda MVP on FanDuel? I kind of like it.
Sneaky. It's sneaky. I do like Pineda because of me kind of always taking a wait and see approach to guys coming off crazy, crazy injuries. You'll also think about Pineda having a significant edge in the jiu-jitsu department. And I think if he gets it there, he can work towards just, I will say, right? Like if I blew out my knee, knock on wood, where's some wood? Okay, knocking on wood. One of the last things you're going to do is get back into grappling.
Mm-hmm.
Like boxing, mitts, bag work is going to be, it's going to be first on that checklist. But grappling and wrestling, that comes later as your knee heals. So that's a worry for me.
By the way, Mike, appreciate your comment. Maybe this should be a shirt. Happy Bungalows and Merry Takedown City, you guys.
I like it.
I like it. But, of course, coming up here next here on Awesemo, about 10 minutes from now, will be NBA Live Before Lock. Keep it locked here. So that is going to do it for this edition of MMA Live Before Lock. Pete, anything you want to mention before we get out of here?
No, man, I'm excited. I mean, we got one more card next week before the end of 2020. And then we're back with some bangers in 2021, some new tools, tons of stuff. I cannot wait.
Yeah, after next week, we'll have a 3 weeks between fights. And by the way, you realize today is the 5-year anniversary of Conor McGregor knocking out Jose Aldo?
Yeah, it makes me feel old, man. It makes me feel old. I don't like it.
Doesn't feel like it was 5 years ago, but that is going to do it for MMA Live Before Lock right here at Awesemo.com. Keep it locked for NBA Live Before Lock with Adam and Greg.